and welcome to Horse Guards for the Queen's official birthday, which the Household Division celebrates by trooping the colour. It's always a memorable occasion, but this year the event is especially heavy with history. Last year it was the weather as much as anything else that many of us will remember the day for. This time the colour is being trooped less than a fortnight after those extraordinary scenes just up the road on the Mall, and so many thousands turned out to celebrate the Queen's Golden Jubilee. And 20 years ago yesterday, word came through from the South Atlantic that the battle for the Falklands had been won. I'll be joined this morning by a Falklands veteran and former Welsh Guardsman, Simon Weston. And to put him on his mettle for the day, we gave him the military equivalent of a sniff of the old grease paint.
48. Now it's been 20 years since I held a rifle in my hands, but I loved everything about being a Welsh Guardsman, the ceremonial and the soldiering. I did many parades, but today's my chance to watch the birthday parade without getting my boots dirty. Now this is something I really don't miss. So you actually on the parade today, you guys?
Yeah, let's go for the colour.
Did I score today? Excellent. Do you have any worries about today?
Don't know, just in case you make a mistake, it's on camera and everybody's watching, so a bit scary.
What could be your biggest nightmare on the actual parade?
There's two nightmares. The two sort of very high-profile points are when I return my sword just before I pick up the colour, and then the second sort of large moment is when I do the on the eyes right, when I bring the colour out to the from the carry out in front, and lock it in for the march past in slow time.
How heavy is that actual standard?
Heavy enough.
Well, I hope you have a fantastic day and everything goes really well for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And the escort for the colour, the stars really of this parade, are just coming onto Horse Guards now. This year the colour's being trooped by the 1st Battalion Scots Guards, a regiment which itself saw action in the Falklands. Simon, what does it make you feel when you survey this scene this morning?
It makes me feel very proud. It fills me with a great deal of awe. I never actually got to do this part of it. I only ever got to do the street lining, so I'm quite envious to a degree, but I still marvel at the spectacle.
In 1982, the Welsh Guards should, all other things being equal, have been here, shouldn't they? Because you were on ceremonial duties, but you got sent to the Falklands instead.
Yes, it was a bit of a blow to the ego. But yeah, we went to the Falklands. Unfortunately, we didn't get a great deal of luck down there. But the Scots Guards were with us as well, and they acquitted themselves extremely well. They fought probably the hardest battle of the Falklands on Tumbledown, and they were incredible.
Well, the Queen's colour being trooped this year is a new one. It was presented to the Scots Guards in April this year. To understand why this ceremony has such an enduring power and appeal, you have to understand what this crimson rectangle, just being unfurled now, this crimson rectile of once stood for. Peony silk, incidentally, is the correct way of describing its colour. Today its role may be symbolic, but for many centuries it played a critical, practical role in battle. And the annals of this regiment, the Scots Guards, includes an especially vivid illustration of that, the Battle of Alma in the Crimea. As the Guards Brigade advanced on Sevastopol, they crossed the Alma River and met a barrage of Russian fire from the heights above. In the ensuing chaos of gunfire, retreating troops and confused commands, the Scots Guards fell into disorder. Immediately, Ensign Lindsay and the colour party grabbed the colours and, in full face of enemy guns, raised them aloft and stood firm until the regiment rallied round them and continued the advance. The Queen's colour was later found to have 23 bullet holes, and the pole was shot through.
When we salute the colours, we are saluting everything that we hold important. Spirit of service, self-sacrifice, loyalty, devotion to our sovereign. All these points are enshrined in the colours, and you will see when you look at the colours, they have upon them the distinctions of various battle honours that have gone forth in our history since 1642. It's also a great responsibility to live up to those who've gone before us and have committed to battle. That responsibility, I'm sure, would carry us forward when the going got tough.
Lieutenant Colonel Mark Bence-Trow, who we'll be seeing a good deal of this morning. Well, there are 6 groups of officers and men across the corner of the parade ground. Each group is known as a guard. The L-shaped formation, which they'll take up in a moment or two, echoes the hollow square which was used to such effect in the Battle of Waterloo, the anniversary of which incidentally falls on Tuesday, the 18th of June. Waterloo is one of the battle honours on the Scots Guards' colours. They held Hougoumont Farm, which Wellington regarded as the linchpin of the battle, and it still carries a plaque remembering their action today. At the south end of the line is the Escort and number 2 Guard, both found by, that's the military term for drawn from, the 1st Battalion Scots Guards. They wear no plume, their buttons are in threes, and their collar badge is a thistle. The regimental motto is very warlike: Nemo me impune lacessit, let no one provoke me with impunity. Number 3 Guard is found by F Company Scots Guards, which was created in 1993 when the 2nd Battalion was put into suspended animation. They now proudly preserve the history and traditions of that battalion. Number 4 Guard is found by the Queen's Company 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards. Grenadier Guards were formed in 1656, originally in the service of the then exiled King Charles II. Number 5 Guard at the north end of the line is found by Nijmegen Company Grenadier Guards. That takes its name from the famous action by the 2nd Battalion capturing the Nijmegen Bridge in 1944. If we turn the corner of the L-shaped formation, which they're just forming into now, in front of the Citadel and the old Admiralty building is number 6 Guard from 7 Company Coldstream Guards. Coldstream Guards began life on the other side to the Grenadiers as a regiment in Cromwell's New Model Army. They wear a red plume on the right of the bearskin, buttons in groups of 2, which signifies their second in order of precedence in the Foot Guards. There's a collar badge, they wear the Garter Star. Neither the Welsh nor the Irish Guards are on parade this morning. They're both occupied with other duties. When the Falklands War was declared 20 years ago, the Scots Guards were on ceremonial duties in London, and they should, all other things have been equal, have been here on Horse Guards for that year's trooping. In fact, while their comrades back in London were bulling their boots and blancoing their belts, the Scots Guards were preparing for one of the toughest battles of the Falklands campaign, which Simon mentioned a little while ago. Mount Tumbledown was fought on the night of the 13th to the 14th of June in 1982. And we brought together a group of veterans to try and get a sense of what it must have been like. 15:30 hours on the 13th of June, and the commanding officer gives his final orders to the men who will attack Mount Tumbledown. Lying 7 miles to the west of Port Stanley, Tumbledown is a key strong point of the defending hill line covering Stanley.
First mine.
A battalion of the elite Argentinian 5th Marines are well dug in on the steep mountain crags. The plan is for a silent night assault in 3 phases, preceded by a small diversionary attack.
The Argentinians were expecting us to attack from this area down here to the north-east. The whole purpose was to make them think that we were attacking from the direction that they expected us to, which would draw their fire and generally create confusion for them for where they were going to place reinforcements. And in a nutshell, that's what it was.
The diversionary party encountered the first enemy positions.
There were only about 25 of us, and we knew that we were taking on at least the company strength of Argentinian Marines, which were their supposedly crack troops. So we knew right from the beginning that it was going to be difficult. In all, I think there were about 12 or 13 wounded or killed.
As we were withdrawn, there was a hidden minefield or a nuisance minefield, and as we were withdrawn back, in the heat of the battle as it ended, we were withdrawn back and we actually stepped into the minefield itself. And that's when we took even more casualties as it was going.
G Company silently crossed the start line. The main attack on Tumbledown is underway.
It was very, very wet and boggy underfoot. Whilst walking up to our position we were going to take, we were actually going down about 6 inches. And of course the wind, it was ferocious. It was sleet, snow. So it was very poor conditions, which I think added to our cover as well for going in. They weren't able to see our approach because of the actual snow, sleet and such like. We only heard Argentinian voices, but we never actually saw anybody at this stage. Because the diversionary attack went in, the men behind the actual guns had actually got up and went to where the firing was taking place. They were expecting the main attack to come in there, and like I said, that's what actually saved our company, and probably most of the battalion as well.
With the first phase secure, left flank advanced through G Company and attacked the main feature of Tumbledown.
We came under immense fire. Firepower that I can't describe really, but it would be like Vietnam, like the First World War, and everybody took cover. And I suppose at that time there would have been a certain amount of chaos.
And in that night, they had been very clever in the way in which they had prepared their weapons, so there wasn't flash really to go from, to give you an indication of where the positions were. So they were well dug in, and the artillery, and it was prolonged artillery fire, really had a negligible effect, if you like.
Imagine how bitterly cold and freezing we were. Been lying there for God knows how long. I had the machine gun. I couldn't feel my fingers, I couldn't feel my toes. The platoon sergeant told us to get into a hole. Well, we proceeded to get into his hole, and he said, "Bugger off, go and find your own hole." Extraordinary, yeah, really. Extraordinary.
Pinned down for several hours, and with daylight fast approaching, there was only one way to remove the enemy.
You're speaking about people getting into trenches and physically removing them. Crawling up, putting a grenade actually into the trench at arm's length, following communication cord from one position to another. That was the only way we could locate the supporting trench. And platoons breaking down into sections and skirmishing from one position to another. And in many cases, at the point of a bayonet, people removed.
After fierce hand-to-hand fighting, 7 men finally reached the top of Tumbledown and watchers' right flank secure the remaining Argentinian positions.
I would have been located in and around this area here, and at that time it was almost light. Well, it was light, I have to say, and I witnessed a right flank going forward, using fire and manoeuvre, 1 foot on the ground, 1 man moving. And they pepper-potted forward. And I remember thinking back that 5 months prior to that is exactly what I was doing as a recruit at the Guards Depot, Pirbright.
Shortly afterwards, the Argentinians surrender. The battle for Tumbledown, and with it the Falklands, is won.
It just didn't enter our head that we would lose, and it didn't enter my head that I wasn't coming back. It just wasn't an option.
You just had to do your job, and you didn't have time to be frightened. So much so that when we were actually in the real thick of the fighting, I felt quite detached from it, and just felt that nothing would happen to me, and that's how you get through it.
And that was just before you get shot.
That's life.
Well, the general commanding the Argentinian forces on the Falklands described Tumbledown as the decisive battle of the war. General Menendez said, "Once Tumbledown was taken, the game was up if my men were not to be massacred." There's a sight here you won't see again for the next 6 years. The pipers of the Scots Guards out on Horse Guards for the trooping. The regiment are going to Germany early next year and, of course, taking their pipers with them. Musicians in the Guards join as musicians and are trained to act as stretcher bearers and general medics in time of war, but pipers join as soldiers first and foremost. and are trained to fight in addition to their piping duties. Indeed, one of the marches that was already being played here this morning was written by a pipe major as he sat and reflected on the battle for Tumbledown. On the morning after the battle, Jimmy Riddle wrote Crags of Tumbledown as the battalion waited to be helicoptered off the mountain. Black dots scribbled on the back of his ration pack, commemorating a hard-won victory.
A lot of pipe tunes that have been written to commemorate various actions and battles, and tunes like the Crags of Tumbledown, which although happened 20 years ago, still remind us today that we could find ourselves in a similar position this year, next year. It's like a living archive of where the regiment's been and what it was that made them so inspiring.
It was after the Battle of Culloden that the pipes were declared an instrument of war, and for centuries they've inspired men to bravery and struck terror into the heart of the enemy. During the First World War, pipers, armed only with their pipes, stood on the parapet on the trenches and played tunes that encouraged men over the top. Over 1,000 of them were killed or wounded, and never again would pipes play on the front line. But no Scottish battalion would go anywhere without them.
When you hear the pipes play and you're marching, or at any time, it will lift you. And you can't help but go. We come up to Wellington Barracks for our Remembrance Sundays, and we march to the pipes end. And I mean, even at 60s, 70-year-olds, sometimes even 80-year-olds are marching. And you can see, as we start off and the pipes play, everybody is lifted.
It's in the blood. The pipes go with us wherever we go. If we get the chance, we get them out, and obviously it's good for morale, and it's good for the for your morale as well as the rest of the troops.
Makes everybody realise that this is the Scots Guards year, that these are Scotsmen coming onto parade, an extra special parade for Her Majesty's Golden Jubilee.
And the first of the carriages from Buckingham Palace have arrived on the parade ground. The first carriage contains the Duke of York and his daughter Princess Beatrice and the Earl and Countess of Wessex. It's a poignant reminder, this, of another momentous event in the royal family's life this year, the death of the Queen Mother. This is the barouche which in the past always brought her to watch Trooping the Colour, an event she almost never missed. And last year she stood for much of the ceremony. The officers have now taken post, as it's called. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Bence-Trow, who's the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion Scots Guards, is the field officer in brigade waiting, and he will give most of the orders this morning. In front of the escort are 3 officers of the 1st Battalion Scots Guards. Just to confuse the unwary outsider, they have roles today which don't necessarily match their ranks. The subaltern is, in fact, a captain, Captain Rupert Kitchen. He's a keen skier, has twice been the winner of the divisional championship. The captain of the escort is a major, Major Chris Bell, and this is his 4th birthday parade. On his first in 1997, he was the ensign carrying the 2nd Battalion colour with F Company Scots Guards. And the man who will really feel the pressure today, the ensign himself, we heard from him a little earlier, who has the job of carrying the colour. Tom Parsons is the youngest officer in the regiment. His youth and a good review from the Regimental Sergeant Major for his performance during drill have earned him this honour. I wonder how he's feeling today. And you can see the Guards, of course, carrying their rifles today, their combat rifles. The Guards do constantly hone their weapons skills because these aren't just ceremonial, these are the rifles they go to war with.
To be a good shot under pressure, you need steady nerves. You need to be able to have very slick handling drills. You need to be able to acquire the target very quickly and hit the target. The chutes are actually geared, not as most people would perceive, as just lying there taking your time firing at a target. They're combat shooting, they're realistic to what we might face in operations, i.e. we'll fire with respirators on for being in a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare situation. 95% of the shots that are fired in these competitions are fired under pressure, where you have to adopt an alternative position from which you're actually in when the target appears, and engage the target up to ranges of 400 metres. All of that under 3 seconds.
This is our bread and butter at the end of the day, getting to the enemy and then engaging the enemy. So by doing a march and shoot competition, you're exactly simulating that. As far as reality goes and realistic sort of training, this is very close. It's a question of getting around the course pretty quickly so that you've got enough time to sort of slow yourself down before going into the competition.
Think about the shoot.
And I think probably the most difficult part is the transition between the two, getting your breathing down so that your rifle's going to be steady so that you can actually release the shots with a steady hand so that they're actually going to hit the target.
The standard of the household division, I firmly believe, has got to be better than everybody else in all walks of life. That's not just on ceremonial, that's when we're in the army, on operations, and the history books will testify to that. And that is something that is 100% drilled into you every day in life. Nothing but the high standards will be accepted as a guardsman.
And the royal procession is now approaching down the Mall. It's a familiar journey, this, for Her Majesty the Queen. She took the parade in the last year of her father's life during his illness, and she's made this journey to Horse Guards every year but one during her 50 years on the throne. There was a rail strike in 1955 which stopped the parade that year. But the first time Her Majesty saw all this was when she was just a child. In 1934, she watched as her grandfather, George V, took the salute on his 69th birthday. And as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, she rode behind her father for the first time in 1947. But it was in 1952 that she left Buckingham Palace as the reigning monarch. Now the parade was in her honour. In 1969, the Queen first rode Burmese, a gift from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It was a partnership that was to continue for 18 birthday parades, including Silver Jubilee year 25 years ago, when, by coincidence, the colour of the Scots Guards was also trooped. An accomplished horsewoman, the Queen showed her riding skills in 1981 when shots were fired in the Mall. She swiftly brought Burmese under control, and the parade continued as if nothing had happened. Following Burmese's retirement 5 years later, the Queen decided that rather than train another horse, she'd ride in the ivory-mounted phaeton, and she's continued to do so ever since. And that's the scene on the Mall today as the royal procession makes its way from Buckingham Palace. Simon, we can see the guardsmen lining the route there. I think gutter snouts is what they're known as, isn't it?
They are indeed. It's not the most pleasant job in the world. It's probably the longest stand you have to do in your whole guard's career. It's very tiring, and it's the most uncomfortable because you don't get to move a great deal. You're just there. It's incredibly boring once everybody goes past, and you have to wait for everybody to come back again. It's a whole hour waiting for everybody else to do things before you can.
I suppose you don't even have the consolation of being the stars, really, do you? As you say, the procession goes past, and then it's just a question of waiting.
Well, that's it. You just to present arms for as long as it takes for everybody to go past. Which is incredibly painful on the shoulders and the wrists, and then after that, then you just go home.
Well, there's the Brigade Major leading the royal procession. It's Lieutenant Colonel Hugh Boddington, with 4 troopers of the Blues and Royals behind him. And you can see now very clearly that L-shaped formation which echoes the squares of the days of the Napoleonic Wars. There's the mounted bands, played the procession down the Mall. It's coming up behind the mounted bands. You can see the first two divisions of the Sovereign's escort. They are found from the Blues and Royals this year, and there's Her Majesty the Queen. You can hear the enthusiasm of the crowd. A hint of some of the spirit of the Jubilee celebrations less than a fortnight ago. Glittering scene there on a glorious June day. Sharp contrast to last year. Queen wearing a leaf green silk coat on top of a spotted chiffon dress and a wide-brimmed straw hat. Moment or two you'll see the coachman salute the colours as the phaeton passes them. Behind the Queen, the four royal colonels, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, who's Colonel of the Welsh Guards, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, Duke of Kent, Colonel of the Scots Guards, and Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, who's Gold Stick in Waiting and Colonel of the Blues and Royals. See, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent is riding a grey horse because he was a serving officer in the Scots Greys, who traditionally use horses of a colour to match the regiment's name. Of course, he's riding today is called Trident. Queen just approaching the saluting dais. Well, there now follows the inspection of the line. The massed bands are under the direction of Major Andrew Chatburn of the Irish Guards, who's the Senior Director of Music of the Guards Division. They'll be playing Scottish Airs, which is a combined slow march arranged by Major Robert Owen, Director of Music of the Scots Guards, especially for this birthday parade. You might recognise some of the tunes in this as they play. My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose, Ye Banks and Braes, The Dark Isle, and the Skyboat Song. Now inspecting the guards. Simon, she's formally inspected them. I don't imagine there's much chance she's going to find anything wrong.
No, the inspection will have been done a long time ago, and people will have been put on charge if there wasn't, if the kit wasn't up to standard. This is just purely ceremonial. This is just to review her troops and to parade in front of everybody.
People talk about a particularly close relationship between the Sovereign and the Guards regiments. Does that still apply, do you think?
It certainly does, as far as I'm aware. I spoke to a lot of the chaps last week, and they all felt the same way that we felt all the way back 20 years ago. There's a great honour in being in the Guards and being so close to the royal household. And the Queen is our monarch, she's our boss, if you like, and there's a great feeling of belonging to all of that, and a great pride in that. So yes, we do.
So as she passes down the line here, a very proud moment really, I suppose, for many of the Guardsmen.
It certainly is. I spoke to some of the Scots Guards who were on the escort, and they really feel it's a huge honour. Everybody that I knew who actually did the troop felt it was a great honour to be a part of it, because you never know with the type of service you have whether you're going to get the opportunity again, because of, look at me, injured, and I never got the chance. So, you know, it's one of those things, it could be just once in a lifetime.
Well, as she turns the corner, we're going to hear a new march, a march composed by Pipe Major Paul Selwood, and there's a story attached to that. This year the Queen presented the Scots Guards with the Colonel-in-Chief's pipe banner on the occasion of her Golden Jubilee, which is something that's never happened before. And to commemorate the occasion, the Pipe Major composed this tune, Don Ban Rai, which translates as "To the Lady King," because the word Queen doesn't exist in Gaelic. You'll see the coachman salute the sovereign standard as the royal procession passes. Party just approaching the Royal Horse Artillery, who we'll see shortly, and you'll see the salute this time is for the regiment's guns, which are its colour. see the brigade major out at the front, Hugh Boddington. I think, Simon, you knew him during your time in the Welsh Guards.
I did briefly. Not to say that we actually shared a cup of tea or anything together. Officers don't tend to do that too often with the guardsmen. But he was one of the lieutenants in the battalion at the time. Yeah, he's a nice chap. As far as I ever got to know him that well. But, yeah.
I see the 4 Royal Colonels behind the Queen. At 81, Prince Philip is, at least it certainly seems so on the basis of the records you've been able to check, he's the oldest colonel to ride at the parade. Nearest competition was the Duke of Cambridge, who was Queen Victoria's cousin, who notched up nearly 40 years as Commander-in-Chief of the Army. He rode at the parade at the age of 76 in 1895. As the Major General commanding the Household Division, was also the General Officer commanding London District, Major General Reddy Watt. He enjoys the use of the Duke of Wellington's office, which is, you can see just above Horse Guards Arch there. He's said to be a firm believer in the military maxim, train hard, fight easy. Well, the mass bands will now prepare for the troop. Bands are playing Les Huguenots, which is based on Meyerbeer's opera of the same name. It was first played, as far as we know, at the Troop in 1869. Again in 1871 it proved so popular that they've been playing it at this point in the Troop ever since. Raised to prepare for the turn and the counter march. Senior Drum Major Warrant Officer Class 2 Andy Gray giving signal with his staff. Those punctuation marks in the parade when the sleigh march changes to the quick. The music at this point is American. It's the first time it's been played at trooping. It was actually written over 100 years ago, but it wasn't until the Band of the Grenadier Guards spent some time in the United States in 1977 that they adopted this, and as I say, it's the first time it's been performed on parade. See the lone drummer breaking away from the mass bands there. Lance Sergeant Kenneth Harkness. His brother fought in the Falklands and indeed was wounded on Mount Tumbledown. He will give the drummer's call for the troop to begin, a reminder of the days when battlefield orders were heralded by the sound of a drum. At this point, the captain of the escort is going to pass command to the subaltern, and an orderly crosses the carriageway to take the regimental sergeant major's pace stick so he can draw his sword. Marches off to the quick march, the British Grenadiers. This tune is used at this point in the troop, no matter which regiment provides the escort. It's a reminder of the days when all the foot guards had a Grenadier company on the right flank. See the massed bands wheeling to clear the way for the escort. Escort will halt 20 paces from the colour. Subaltern has to watch for a stub which will mark the point at which he's to stop. Halt. Regimental Sergeant Major, Warrant Officer 1 Crosby, moving from the rear. And as he passes the ensign, he will collect him and lead him towards the colour. They will halt when the ensign is 9 paces from the colour. It's one of those tricky moments that the ensign told Simon he was so nervous about, getting his sword back into his scabbard. See that the 4 non-commissioned officers at the corner of the escort have got their arms up, porting it's called. It's a symbolic protection of the colour. Point at which trooping, again, the colour is going to be trooped through the ranks. See the massed bands performing a manoeuvre known as the spin wheel. No instructions for this. It's being described as the most professional display of organised chaos in the world. Legend has it that it's not unheard of for a musician to get completely lost, come out at the wrong end, though I don't imagine many of us watching it would realise whether that had happened. For the first time this year, there's a married couple somewhere in there, Joanne and Jolyon Matthews of the Scots Guards. In a moment or two you'll hear the music cut out got back into step after that interruption. Days when the colours of a regiment were carried into battle, they were, as we saw in that account of the Battle of Alma, used as a rallying point for the troops, something that could be easily seen and followed above the smoke and confusion of the battlefield. And on the eve of the engagement, the colour was marched slowly, or trooped as it became known, through the ranks like this. Battalion was campaigning, the colour was hung from a window or doorway to mark a temporary headquarters, and each morning an escort like this would accompany it to the assembled troops. Simon, obviously the colours don't have the same importance as a means of communication these days, but do they still have that significance to modern guardsmen?
Oh, without any doubt, it's everything that a regiment was, is today, and is going to be in the future, and hopefully all of these young men here will contribute to the greater glory of that colour and the history of the regiments. Men are very proud of their colours, and they hold them with great esteem.
Is it something you're taught when you join the regiment? Are you made to go through the battle honours and told stories about how they were earned?
Well, you do your regimental history, but the more you serve, the more you talk to people, the more stories that come out and the more history gets known, and the prouder you become of the individual conflicts and battle honours that exist on the colours. It's something then you hold very, very dear, because it's your regiment, you are a part of it, it's everything you are for the time you serve. And certainly as far as Welsh Guardsmen are concerned, it's once a guardsman, always a guardsman, and I think that goes for everyone. You can see by the crowd here today, there are so many guards ties and blazers and insignias on the breasts. These people are very, very proud of what they've done, what they've achieved, and where they've served.
It looks wonderfully smooth and disciplined from here, but I imagine there's more going on than we perhaps see. Are people talking to each other as they troop? Are they encouraging each other? Some more experienced officers perhaps helping the younger ones?
Well, it certainly used to be. It's probably a little different now because there are so many young men who've not actually served with their regiments yet, so they don't have that regimental experience just at the moment. But if there are people there that have known each other for a while, they might just give them the wink or say how you going or whatever. You won't see it from up here, and nobody will see it and nobody will know, but woe betide if you get caught doing it. But yeah, it does go on occasionally. It's just one of those things. These guys trained with each other through their basics, and they also go on courses together because we're all part of household divisions, so we do get that opportunity to see each other on a regular basis.
And they've been at the present with their rifles held as they are at the moment for some time now, haven't they? That must get to be quite a strain.
It's mighty uncomfortable. It's one of the longest presents you do. There are probably about 2 or 3 times when you do them for this length of time, and it is very uncomfortable because it's an unnatural position for your arms and your shoulders. It affects the small of your back and everything because you've got 9, nearly 10 pounds of metal hanging out in front of you. So it is mighty uncomfortable, and you're only too happy when you go back to the shoulder.
Well, the colour has now been trooped. The first part of the parade is complete. Simon, for those guards that are not members of the escort, this is the first time they've moved for what must be over an hour now, I think. Jolly uncomfortable, actually.
It's incredibly uncomfortable. Standing there becomes a bit of a habit, but your joints and your muscles start to seize because you've marched down. And it's incredibly painful for some guys, certainly when they first step off. And you actually feel sometimes a crack in your knee when you actually lift your leg. But it's such a relief to be able to move. You do get quite sore just standing still because you have to be as still as you possibly can, because again, military law dictates that fidgeting about on parade can put you on a charge, and the worst thing anybody can do is not hit you but hit you in the pocket. So you really don't want to be found out.
This is where the second part of the parade begins, the march past Her Majesty the Queen. They're marching to a neutral slow march, neutral in the sense that it's not connected with any particular regiment. It's the Moray Firth by Mackenzie, and it's dedicated to that famous waterway off Inverness. The last time, interestingly, it was used at this occasion was in the 1977 Silver Jubilee birthday parade, when coincidentally the Scots Guards also provided the escort. Scots Guards was formed in 1642 when King Charles I issued a commission to the first Marquis of Argyll. It was intended to be used in the campaigns in Ireland, but it wasn't actually brought into the English army, as it then was, until 1686, which meant it became the 3rd Regiment of Foot Guards after the Grenadiers and Coldstream Guards. Its battle honours read rather like a record of English and British military history. Siege of Namur in 1695, Dettingen 1743, the Peninsula Campaign under Wellington, and of course the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Because the officers of each guard have their backs to their men, they rely heavily on 2 guardsmen at this point. There's an experienced guardsman just behind each officer whose job is to warn him discreetly if he strays. He'll say right a bit or left a bit as appropriate. The instruction always, of course, followed by the word sir. And on the right of each guard is a warrant officer known as the right guide. He needs to judge the moment to step off to keep the spacing right. And he shouts when he's satisfied that everyone's where they should be. Scots Guards' modern history is as distinguished as its ancient history. During the First World War, they fought at Mons, Cambrai, Luz, Ypres and the Somme, won 5 Victoria Crosses, lost 111 officers and 2,730 soldiers. In fact, on the first day of the Battle of Ypres, at the first Battle of Ypres rather, in 1914, they lost 3/4 of the regiment. It's something unique this year. For the first time, you can get a guardsman's eye view of what it's like to march in slow time. This is number 3 Guard, which is F Company of the Scots Guards. Simon, this company is made up of very young guardsmen, some of them just 17 years old, only been in the regiment for a few months. What sort of a review would you give their performance?
So far, I think they've had an excellent troop. It's very difficult when you don't have the regimental experience and the ability to relax and to be as calm under the pressure that they're under. But I think they've done tremendously well. I think the rifle drill has been superb, and it's been an excellent troop so far. I just hope it continues. There's always a chance for a mistake to take place. Whenever you've got human beings and horses together, there's always a chance.
Don't tempt fortune. Field officer in brigade waiting to lead the march past Majesty the Queen. This is one of those, second of those moments that the ensign told Simon he was so nervous about. You will see he moves the colour off to the side and lowers it as they pass the saluting there. It's a very difficult manoeuvre indeed. Embroidered in the centre of the colour is the battalion badge. It consists of the Royal Arms of Scotland with a lion rampant beneath the imperial crown. Been acknowledging the colour as it passes. Motto, which is the battalion's motto, is distinct from the regimental mottos, equally warlike. En ferus hostis, behold a fierce enemy. Music at this point, the Garb of Old Gaul, which is Scots Guards regimental slow march. Shortly you'll hear the music change to the Grenadiers, British Grenadiers, the Grenadiers Slow March, which is Scipio. Number 5 Guard from Nijmegen Company Grenadier Guards, passing the Queen. finally some Mozart Figaro as number 6 guard. 7 Company Coldstream Guards marches past the Queen. That salute given by the mounted officers is thought to date back to the Crusades. In those days, the hilt of the sword formed a cross, and Crusaders would kiss it before going into battle. The point of the sword is lowered as a formal way of signalling that no harm is intended. Field officer is any officer above the rank of major, and he is in waiting, in the sense of in waiting on the Queen. The Horse Guards building stands on what was once part of Henry VIII's Palace of Whitehall. There was a cockfighting pit here, and the sentry in the front yard is still known as the Chick Sentry as a result. During the Napoleonic Wars, Wellington planned his campaigns from this office above Horse Guards Arch. Indeed, this space, the largest open space in London, parks of course excepted, has been at the centre of many of the great dramas of British history. Just across from the Iron Duke's office is a monument to British naval power. This was the Admiralty when Britain really did rule the waves. It was here that the senior officers of the Navy planned their campaign against Napoleon. Nelson himself, who is peering down at us from Trafalgar Square, seldom came here, and he and Wellington only met once. Nelson failed to recognise his great contemporary, but apparently they got on well once they got over that little hiccup. And at the corner of Horse Guards, on the edge of the approach road, stands a reminder of a more recent European entanglement. The Citadel was built as a bomb-proof command centre during the Second World War, and it's still camouflaged with ivy and a grass-covered roof. That provides a very good view of today's parade. Pipers are moving to the front of the massed bands for the Queen March, something the Queen decreed should happen in 1952. It's happened ever since. Scots Guards pipers wear full Highland dress with the Royal Stuart tartan, kilt and plaid. At this point, some of the guards are marching on tarmac, on what's normally a public road, some marching on the gravel of Horse Guards. It means they went slightly different speeds when they were rehearsing, so it's taken a bit of practice to get it right. like it, but there is a slight incline on Horse Guards, and as they march off this time they're marching very slightly uphill, which I'm told by those who've done this you begin to feel the second time around. Colour is behind the escort for the quick march past. It isn't lower, that just would be too difficult. The quick march of the Scots Guards, Highland Abbey. Changes to the British Grenadiers, quick march of the Grenadiers for numbers 4 and 5 Guards. Coldstream Guards, Milanolo. Field Officer Brigade Waiting Lieutenant Colonel Mark Vince Tries riding Ludwig, extremely experienced horse. Probably knows this parade better than almost anyone. He's taken part in 11 birthday parades and carried the Field Officer for the last 5 of them. magnificent sight, Simon. Do you see any relationship between this kind of wonderful display and the sort of task that modern soldiers are required to perform in battlefield conditions?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. This is smart and ceremonial, but the discipline this takes, it builds to help you when you're in conflict, when you're doing arduous tasks out in the field, when you're dealing with treacherous missions, whatever. It is the discipline that holds you together, that pulls you through, that makes you react in the way that you should when you're under stress.
Did you find that on Sgalhad in the Falklands?
Yeah, certainly. One of the things that was mentioned to me several times by other people from different regiments, even from the Navy, was that at no time was there panic on the Sir Galahad when everything was going to pieces. You know, it was all hell in a handcart with us then, and people stayed calm, people did what they were told, and people took charge. They were standing on bits of machinery, hollering at people to move to different areas so that they could establish who was okay and who'd been lost as quickly as possible.
It must be quite difficult to make that connection when you're being endlessly made to drill and practice these skills there.
Well, it's a hard lesson to tell the young soldier when he starts, because all they see is this pain and this thing that's totally abnormal to their everyday day-to-day life. But when it does all go wrong and things are incredibly problematic, it does teach them a good lesson, yeah.
The Foot Guard's active role in the parade is now more or less complete. They're now going to arrange themselves in position to await the arrival of the mounted troops on parade. The mass bands and drums will now move to the south side of the parade ground to allow the mounted bands onto the centre. Mounted band regiments have indeed been waiting on the sidelines for nearly an hour now. See the two drum horses there, Constantine and Spartacus. Interestingly, they have stable names as well as their formal names. Spartacus is known as Sparky, Constantine rather less predictably as Eric. Kettle drums, which we saw there from those two, weigh 56 pounds each, but they're slightly different sizes, and one's deeper to give a different sound. So the smaller one has to have a lead weight underneath to balance it. Now coming on to the parade, King's Troop, Royal Horse Artillery. Really in the 18th century that artillery became mobile and accompanied infantry and cavalry onto the battlefield when technology made it possible to have the guns a bit lighter. Blues and Royals carrying the Sovereign standard. Now coming past the saluting dais. Blues and Royals interestingly played a diversionary role in the attack on Tumbledown during the Falklands campaign. And they were more recently in action in Kosovo, where they crossed in to Kosovo with the first wave of troops. Next come the Lifeguards, the senior regiment in the British Army, formed by a group of loyal gentlemen who accompanied King Charles II to the continent during his exile and formed themselves into a military bodyguard for the protection of their sovereign. They escorted him back to England at the Restoration in 1660. And at the back of the Lifeguards you can see the farriers. Their job was to kill horses that were badly wounded on the battlefield and then use those axes to, interestingly, cut off their hooves, which were numbered because the army had to keep a pretty close tally on what was a very valuable military resource. See the trumpeter of the Blues and Royals there, and he's on a grey horse. Greys were used for trumpeters so that they could be easily seen on the battlefield. Commanding the Royal Horse Artillery is Major Simon Hall. When it's on parade with its guns, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery takes precedence over all other regiments, which gives them the privilege of occupying the right of the line. Think it does see this display, but most of the new recruits to King's Troop can't actually ride when they join. Nose down the parade ground before it began, but you can see the dust really being kicked up there. Price, the Director of Music, Blues and Royals, Captain Douglas Robertson. Joined the Army in 1972 as a 15-year-old trombonist, and he's due to be promoted to Major in July this year after serving 30 years. Just a glimpse of the muzzle of the equestrian statue of General Garnet Wolseley. He's one of those great Victorian generals who helped spread the colour red across the map. Fought in China, West Africa, Canada, India and Egypt. You should notice the kettle drummers use their feet to control the reins. You can just see that there. The state clothing of the mounted band is the oldest ceremonial uniform in the regular army, and it's fenced around with the sort of protocol you'd expect to be associated with a distinction like that. It can only be worn when members of the royal family are on parade. The mounted bands of the Household Cavalry moving off the parade ground and up towards the approach road, just passing in front of the old Admiralty building and the Citadel. Marching discreetly, if it's possible to march discreetly when you're 6'6" in your stocking feet. Along the side of the parade ground is the Garrison Sergeant Major Perry Mason, the man who's really responsible for choreographing this parade. He's marching up to a point on the approach road from which he'll be able to give a signal to march off. This is his final birthday parade. His polished boots have been stamping this gravel since I think 1966, which was the first time that he was out here on parade. Field officer going to seek permission from the Queen to march off.
Guards are ready to march off now.
And the scene there in the Mall. Crowds lining either side, waiting for Her Majesty the Queen. Prime Minister and his wife watching there. All this is of course taking place in the shadow of the walls of Downing Street, which are up against Horse Guards Parade. Simon, a moment, I suppose, approaching when they can begin to feel they can relax. Although some of them have got to go on to other duties, haven't they?
Yes, the escort, they go straight on to duty at St James's Palace, Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London, so they don't get any respite. They'll have been working for the best part of 36 hours by the time they come off duty tomorrow, so they're not looking forward to the next 24 hours, I shouldn't think.
But with the sound of the pipes, a slight spring in their step as they march off, having done very well.
They've done exceptionally well. It could have only been bettered if the Welsh Guards had been on parade, but then again I'm biased. But no, it's been a particularly good parade. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching it. They've done tremendously well, but then again, I knew the jocks would.
That's very generous of you. Do the pipes give you that sense that we were talking about at the beginning of the programme? Make you stand a bit taller in your boots?
It's one of those things, I've never heard a guardsman yet once say that it isn't the best thing to march to. You get that swing in your body and the swagger in your step, and you just seem to enjoy yourself that much more. You do lift with the pipes. Perhaps that's what makes the Scots such famous and ferocious fighters, but it certainly is something tremendous to march behind. And it's a wonderful, wonderful musical instrument as well. I love it.
Military attaches of the various embassies there watching as Majesty the Queen passes the old Admiralty building. Great applause from the crowd as Her Majesty moves off down the approach road towards the Mall. Queen is now on her way back to Buckingham Palace. Once we come off the air, I'm going to dash down the Mall after her to join the crowds waiting in the hope that she'll appear on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, as she usually does. We'll have coverage of that in our full report on today's events, which you can see at 6:05 on BBC Two. It is a scene that evokes Shakespeare's vivid image of the pride, pomp and circumstance of glorious war. But 20 years ago, of course, the reality of war was very much on everyone's minds, and there was a minute's silence before the colour was trooped as a mark of respect to those serving in the Falklands. It is instructive to look back at the way some of the newspapers reported that year's parade, many of them making the connection between what was happening here on a summer's day on Horse Guards and what was happening in the cold of a South Atlantic winter. The war goes on, said one paper, so must the pageantry, for that is the soldier's public face, as much a part of the army today as guns and training and dying.